Today, it's a rather somber conversation we're going to have concerning tragedies that happen out there and our responsibility as employers, as employees, and especially for our HR folks. So, this is for those business owners and those HR folks to be able to take a moment and reflect. And that's going to be today on what the heck is happening in HR. For our podcast disclaimer, please visit the episode description. Thanks for coming back to What the Heck is Happening in HR. Wow, what a time this has been. We have floods, we have had hurricanes, we have had fires, we have had earthquakes, we have had so much tragedy happening. And I'm really just focused here on the US market right now. And it's just been everywhere. It almost seems like the latest tragedy has been put aside because there's a new one. So there were the hurricanes, and then there was the flooding, and now there's the fires. And I don't even want to ask what is next. But I do want to talk about our responsibilities around these and just some of the questions you should be asking yourself. I wish I had the answers for you, but I don't. So, one of the things to be sure is to have clear in your values what will happen with your employees, what will happen with their paychecks if your business goes under, if their homes are destroyed. Do they come to your facility, which is, if you will, high and dry or didn't get impacted by anything? Can they? They have nowhere to stay. I mean, what are those sorts of decisions that you're going to make? At least be thinking of it and whether it's appropriate or it's not, or if it is, shoot, they can just come and at least they're dry. We can get them fed and then we can figure out something. Whatever those decisions are, make them. Be sure to run them past your employment lawyer just to be sure, and probably your risk management folks. You might get some no's, but stand your ground a bit to be able to say, I need to help these folks if they have nowhere else to go. But we also have responsibility while this environmental issue or flooding or even, God forbid, an active shooter situation is taking place. Have we trained our employees as to what to do? Have we trained our management how to be leaders in these incidents? Because these are incidents that are chaotic, they are jarring, they are one offs. We don't have simulators to really practice how to do that right now that I'm aware of, though that might be something for virtual reality to have to be able to know how to deal with this in training. So, I want to talk about one in particular, and this is Impact Plastics, which is out of Tennessee. And they have had quite a time. They have a wrongful death lawsuits filed against them. And it has been filed by the family of some of the employees who died. And the employees died, according to the lawsuit, because no one told them they could leave work. That the management team, some of who they say left, but that the supervisors did not give them permission to leave work. And so they stayed. And by the time they felt they could leave, either being told or they just went, we're going, it was too late. And many of them died. And one of the bodies was not found until November. I think that was the very last one was found in November. So, how was this dealt with? How was the training? When the flood started, where was the communication between the top leaders? What was happening? Who knew what? And they say that some were asked to leave, um, but they weren't allowed to. That some of the employees said, hey, we think we ought to go. And the supervisors didn't either feel they could say yes. At least all of this is in the court records, and nothing's been definitive answers there yet. So all of this is alleged. But they're saying, hey, they weren't told that they had to keep people there. They weren't told that they had to leave. that they had to make it up. But then they're saying that the members of management went to safety near the railroad tracks and that they went through the parking lot to where other employees were who were ultimately swept away. So there is this very mismatched story that's going on out of the court records with them. But here's the lesson learned for us. Do we know what we want to do as an organization to protect our employees in the event of tragedy? And you might be like, Kelly, please. I mean, they should have left, but they didn't. And we try to have employees who follow their supervisors. And whether the supervisors told them or not, maybe the supervisor was waiting for their supervisor to tell them that they could go. And so, just as I'm reflecting back to when we put in new benefit plans and we made those big changes in benefit insurance plans, in particular, about going to the emergency room. And we put in these big deductibles if you went to the emergency room, or these big fees that you had to pay if you went to the emergency room and it wasn't an emergency. And that's sort of like when urgent cares started. And I remember those employee benefit meetings and employees saying, well, what's an emergency? And I said, because nobody had told me, but I said, if you're asking yourself if it's an emergency, it's not an emergency. If you're asking yourself whether we should get them to the hospital, it's an emergency. Your focus is on saving the person or getting them better immediately or stopping the bleeding or getting them something for the illness. That's the emergency. So if you're going, are we going to have to pay a deductible? Then that's not top of mind as an emergency. And I never in all the years had an employee challenge me on that because it just made common sense. But we do need to lay out our expectations, whether it's in performance or whether it's in tragedy. And I know one of the things I love making sure supervisors know is that calm is contagious. So even if you don't have the answer and you're waiting to hear from your boss or you haven't been trained, one thing you can do is have some common sense, but remain calm. People will be looking to you. People will be looking to the HR person to see what happened. And then you will be able to know your leadership has been able to stand up to that. So I don't know. I'll be watching this Impact Plastics lawsuit. Don't know, obviously, what's going to happen. Don't know how many other lawsuits might be coming up from this. But that whole flooding issue, what they're saying, it's a 5,000-year flood. They never expected that. But we also never expect having disgruntled employees come back. We also never expect hurricanes to wipe out areas that have never been wiped out in more than 100 years. And we certainly don't expect fires to take everything from our restaurants to our homes to our businesses. So take a moment, have a staff meeting, talk about what would you do in your business, in your department, if there is such a tragedy that occurs. What's your commitment to your employees? And if you don't have one, then that's your decision. It's your business. And then you need to be able to communicate. Don't expect this from us so that they don't have the expectation that they're going to get something from you. Clear expectations are kind, even if they're hard. And my expectation is that you'll be subscribing to our podcast, What the Heck is Happening in HR, so that you can hear the new episode drop every Monday. Thanks for listening.